She looks metallic.
Though I can't quite recall overnight sensation.
Thank you, my dear viewers, all 10 of you, thank you. And welcome to The Chop, the show where we rip up the edit and shove it right back. The show where we analyze editing and producers' manipulations, the Queen's storylines, and how they are carried out during the season, and of course, our usual confessional chart and a ton of speculation. Because let's face it, there's really nothing better in life than to talk for hours about things you know nothing about. To celebrate the third season of The Chop, this year we'll also track the Queen's appearance during confessionals and produce regular episode instead of only doing the live streams. And this episode is a condensed version of what we discussed on Sunday, but if you want the whole story, there's a link in the description. Of course, in this show there might be possible spoilers, but don't worry, I will give you plenty of spoilers alert. Now before we begin, congratulations on surviving an overload of Drag Race. Drag Race UK, Canada, Spain, Holland. Drag Race UK is premiering in 2 weeks. Drag Race Australia also started filming, which is fantastic. I mean, if it goes on like this, brace yourselves, because next year we're probably going to have something like Drag Race Vatican City. I know what you're thinking. It's disrespectful. It's blasphemy, yes, it's all of that and so much more. And if you cannot imagine it, well, you're in complete luck, because I imagined it for you.
And then walks in
Pope Francis,
the face crack of the century.
Oh my God! Pope Francis! Your runway was a cardinal sin, but your encyclicals left us praying for more. Congratulations, you're the winner of this week's challenge. Ooh! My God, I miss off-season. I miss off-season so much. This season is all about shock value. We begin with 6 lip syncs and a 3-way lip sync, which I don't know if it was an ode to Derek Barry or what. Rumor has it that there used to be a 14th girl, but they found out that she did something similar to Sherry Pie, so they gave her the chop before the season even began. So, 6 queens will go home. Oh, but wait, no, they don't go home. Shocker, they're not going home. Shocker. Oh my God, I need a moment. By the end of the episode, the loser queens were there by absolute chance. I swear it, they are there by chance. They were chosen by chance, they lost because they were absolutely the worst, and now they are there. And now they have to choose who is going to go home, but we're not going to find out, because if you want to find out, well, tune in next episode. But you know what's the gag in all of this? They sent this to RuPaul's Drag Race. This is the gag of the season. So let's go a moment in this thing of the double confessionals. A ton of queens at double confessionals. And all of these confessionals, I listened to what they said, and it was absolutely 100% related to this episode. So what the hell happened? Well, there are 2 possible explanations. Number 1 is that they filmed 2 confessionals. They had 1 confessional filmed before the entrance and 1 confessional filmed after the episode was over. This is a possibility. Do I think that that is likely? Absolutely not. I want to live in my fantasy and believe that they had a major fuck up in the storyboarding for the whole season. What do I mean by that? They filmed everything, then they started editing, and then they realized, wait a moment, we cannot push the storylines. Maybe because they don't have enough materials, or because it's not convincing enough, or because they sent it to VH1 and VH1 said, oh no, we don't like this. change it, it's not working. So they had to change it. And in order to change it, they had to refilm Confessionals. This is what I believe. And why am I so convinced about it? Well, that's because there are some queens who have very ambivalent edits. This is not something that is usual for World of Wonder, to have such ambivalent edits. So it looks like they started with an edit, then they had a course correction, they refilmed the Confessionals, and then went back to the episode, but they were lazy about it. Maybe they were out of time. And maybe they left some reaction shots or sound effects that didn't really belong to that edit. Also, let's not forget that the producers decided the order of the entrances, who would lip sync against who, and also they decided who was going to win and who was going to lose, because let's face it, during the lip syncs, unless something major happens, like when Valentina didn't know the words, they can edit it to make it look as whoever they want to win officially won. This is what they can do. So they basically decided everything. Why would they do something like this? Well, of course, that's the million-dollar question. I believe that it's to trigger queens, put them under pressure, put them in a bad headspace so that somebody will snap, because that's the name of the game, make them snap. And once they snap, you start riding that wave, and that's the perfect recipe for a villain. And let's not forget that they also know who they have the better probability to make snap, because they have a psychological evaluation. They evaluated all of them before coming to the show. And let me tell you, when they do this psychological evaluation, they say that it's to make sure that the contestants will be healthy in isolation, that they are not in danger, a danger for themselves, a danger for others, and many, many other things. In reality, behind the scenes, what really happens is that they use those data to kind of typecasting queens. And based on that, they create the storyboard. So let's not forget all of this, because nothing that you see in this episode happened by chance at all. First up is Kandy Muse and Joy J. And Kandy is sitting on a big old secret. The secret being that whatever social media drama is going on right now might very well be a publicity stunt. And this is why we don't really deal with drama on this channel, especially social media drama. Picking up stupid fights for no reason other than staying relevant instead of being creative and put in the work is just sad. And usually the wrong people have to pay the price for it. So no, if something controversial happens behind the scenes that is substantial and relevant, we will discuss it. Other than that, let's just keep it real. The interaction between the two was kind of cute. The editing for both of them seemed really good, which is absolutely the opposite of what we thought it was going to be for Kandy. When we did the prelude to the chop, she was the queen that we nominated to have the season-long villain edit. Remember, in the world of reality TV, first impression is the one that counts. So when Kandy doesn't come out at all as a villain, that really points in a totally different direction. Why am I saying that? Well, because she said a lot of shit in the first 10 minutes, and they could have done everything they wanted to make her look bad. Instead, they made her look like she was just, stating her opinion, telling about a fact. Nothing too fancy, nothing too shady, just the way it is. So, moving on to the next couple, we have Denali and Lala. Now, while Lala has kind of a favorable edit with nothing major happening there, the interaction between the two is absolutely non-existent. The only thing that we see is Denali shading Lala.
Girl. Not gonna lie, I was expecting a little bit more. Your entrance look is a basic bodysuit, a blazer, and this kind of like flat wig. Okay, cute.
And on the main stage, when you have that moment, when you see the judges that are basically asking questions, who are you, how does this dress represent your drug, and so on, those moments can go up for 15 minutes. That's what I think, 10-15 minutes. And you have to imagine, when the panel of judges is talking to one queen, and you are the other queen, and you are there waiting in high heels for 10-15 minutes, the cameras are bound to catch you bitch facing, with a bored face or in your thoughts, but certainly you're not smiling like a psycho for 15 minutes straight while nobody's talking to you. So this is the kind of moment that we keep an eye on, because depending on what they decide to show us, we know the kind of edit and storyline they're going to give to these queens. Another thing that I want to say about the lip sync is that from my point of view, Denali absolutely killed it. Have you seen that stage? It's slippery. Do you see what she has instead of shoes? Well, I don't know the name in English, that's why I'm going around it. The ice blades, how the fuck are they called? Well, she lip synced in that. And she didn't fall, because trust me, they would have shown it with the edit that she got if she did fall, and she didn't. And based on that, and that alone, and that little that I saw, I would say that Denali won. But guess what? She was put in the bottom, up for elimination. And remember, somebody needs to get triggered. The show needs its villain. Next couple, Symone and Tamisha. Both had a pretty good edit, a pretty favorable edit, a pretty realistic edit. We actually had a moment to make them interact with each other. We saw a confessional in which Symone could have been portrayed as insulting Tamisha, but she was not.
Miss Tamisha is very, no shade, like a mother figure, but also that she is here to play and to slay.
That was an editing choice, and let's keep that in mind as well. Tamisha is also the first queen who had a picture of her family edited into her intro. Almost no other queens had something like this, but she had one picture. She shared her story on the main stage, which is really good, because when these things comes out, I don't know, like in episode 5, when somebody has to lip sync, it kind of feels manipulative. But coming clean just at episode 1, I liked it very much. Moving on to the next couple, which is the most interesting one, because we have Gottmik and Utica. Now, when we did the pre-show on Tuesday, I talked a ton of time about Gottmik. And little did you know, she had an incredible edit. Why am I pushing so much of Gottmik? Well, she is young, she is talented, and she is an infinite source of woke points for World of Wonder. And they do need to save face, both World of Wonder, but especially VH1. Why do they need that? Well, Gigi Good last year was a complete disaster. Everybody clocked their hero edit, everybody called them out on Twitter, which is incredible. It's incredible that casual viewers would feel how much that edit was pushed, but nobody could have predicted the PR catastrophe that happened later. And VH1 was continuously pushing the Alone Together campaign. There was Stay at Home everywhere on VH1, and they had their runner-up on one of their most famous show going out and taking pictures with friends. It was my god. Long story short, they fucked up their image. These companies are businesses. And part of doing business is having a good image, because otherwise you don't make money. So they need to save that damn face. And Gottmik is the perfect candidate. Can you imagine headlines anywhere? Everywhere. Gottmik, first operated trans man to ever appear on the show. It's everywhere, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for publicity, and not just any publicity, they're looking for good publicity. And let's not forget that Gottmik is already a high-profile contestant all by herself. She was already famous before this. She had a huge media following, and even in her intro, she's shown as a makeup artist for big names in the entertainment industry. So she is our candidate for a hero edit, she is our first candidate as a top 3. All because of this. But again, we will talk a little bit more about all of this during the speculations. Utica's entrance was my favorite. The problem is, she kind of had an ambivalent edit. However, I don't think this has anything to do with what we discussed before. They are pulling the usual stupid tricks that they always pull. They make one queen look worse so that the other can look better by comparison. And this kind of shit is 100% part of the hero edit. Let's not forget, she is our hero. Now, can you imagine if they eliminated next episode? I would look like a complete idiot. What a surprise. Who would have known? Okay, moving on. Next up, we have Rosè and Olivia. Which absolutely by chance have to lip sync together. It's absolutely by chance. It was not a story producing, it was not to try to trigger Rosè, because she happened to have to lip sync against somebody younger, somebody that she knows, and somebody who has less experience than her. And of course, she loses the lip sync. Of course she loses the lip sync. Rosè is the second high-profile queen that we have. She's been everywhere. She has done other reality TV. She has done talent show. She's in a band with Jen. Can you imagine if you can take a queen like Rosè and make her look like a complete bitch? If you do that, it's an editing accomplishment. At least from a producer's point of view, because, you know, famous queen, loved queen, is a bitch on TV, and people on Twitter go like ta 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 ta. Oh, you are this, oh, you are that, and that's what they want. They want fucking publicity. Who gives a shit if people then receive death threats? Who gives a shit if people go away from social media, which is basically how they get their money in this day and age? Who cares about that? It's about publicity. You gotta love World of Wonder. Such a nice company. I gotta send them a bouquet of flowers. Or maybe of dicks. And this is the reason why I told you that I think they went back and changed things and refilmed Confessional, because of Rosè. That is my best bet. I cannot guarantee that. Of course I cannot guarantee that. But this is what I think happened. Rosè is the other one with the ambivalent edit. We see her throwing a little bit of shade to Olivia, but not too bad.
I'm a little surprised to see Olivia here, to be honest, because I would expect Olivia to take just a little bit longer to be really ripe enough. But her smile is stunning, and I can't wait to knock her teeth out one by one.
The Confessional that looks like it was refilmed was really tuned down, you know, was more like, yeah, she's younger, I am surprised, but good for her. Good for her, you know? So I think that either they did their best to trigger Rosè, but it didn't work. And then they tried to edit a season to create a storyline in which she is a complete bitch, but that didn't work. So they had to go back and start changing a little bit things. Or they did their best to trigger her, and it worked so well that they didn't want to spoil the surprise on episode 1, and they tried to tune up the edit in a little bit more of a favorable way to create a rising in her villain edit. Next up, we have Tina, Kimora, and Elliot. Tina is absolute the shocker. Again, we will talk about it when we do the prediction again, but Tina's edit was nothing to gag on at all. She is funny as hell, but there were shady noises playing on her. It looks like some of her confessionals were cut to make her look worse than what she did, what I think she did. So keep an eye on Tina.
Rosè's here.
Oh, here we go.
Olivia beat Rosè in a lip sync. Miss Olivia Lux, who's been doing drag for 10 seconds. Rosè is like a little more of a seasoned queen. She got, you know, America's Got Talent. I was on The Voice, you know, I can sing. Well, I guess you couldn't lip sync.
Kimora had a pretty good edit, a pretty normal edit. I didn't notice anything strange going on with it. But Elliot had a ton of shady noises, like a ton of them.
Me? This is not pork chop.
Hi. Okay.
They can't send us home.
They can kind of do whatever they want.
Here we all are in the pork chop lounge. Okay with that.
I went to
Now, it's almost time to move on with the speculations and the confessional chart. But before you go, if you found our review interesting and entertaining, please share it. I know that you're used to hear the mantra of like, share and subscribe, and you don't really think about it anymore. But we need your help, because YouTube is not really suggesting our videos, and we rely on our viewers to spread the word. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to support the Chop, we have a Patreon where you can leave a monthly tip to help us renew our equipment. As usual, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget, the Chop is a live show here on YouTube, so if you want to get our analysis and comments as soon as possible, ask questions or simply hang out with us, come join us every Sunday. We did this speculation last time. Our top 4 will be comprised by 2 queens plus 2 other queens. Now, 2 queens that are there for sure are the Young and Talented, because the Young and Talented is the oldest top 3 or winner that they have. It started in season 6 with Adore Delano, then we had Violet, Naomi. Season 9 was the notable exception, but then in season 10 you had Aquaria, in season 11 there was Evie, and in season 12 there was Gigi. All of these queens between 21 and 24 years old. Does it happen by chance? No, guys, it's marketing. That's why they have a marketing department. And the market for RuPaul's Drag Race is young people. And young people want to see themselves in the potential winners. So there's always a Young and Talented there. Between 21 and 24, it's always there. And Gottmik is the only one that stays in this criteria. Apart from the fact that they absolutely need an image lift. From last year, from what went on with Gigi Good, they need the publicity that comes from the first trans men and so on. So, market dictates that we need to have a Young and Talented, with 90% hero added. And there it is, Gottmik. That's our prediction for the top 4. The second one also come from the marketing department, of course my opinion, don't forget that, is the Queen of Color not portrayed as a villain. Let's not forget that. Drag Race, at least RuPaul's Drag Race, is made for the US market. And a huge chunk of the US market, of course, is African American people and other people of color. So there is a market there, and this market wants to be represented as well. So they need a Queen of Color that it's not portrayed as a villain. Now, our initial prediction was Lala, Olivia and Symone. I am sticking with these possibilities for 2 reasons. Number 1, Kandy runs her mouth too much. She cannot be portrayed as the uncontroversial, not remotely villainous Queen of Color that needs to be taken to the top 3 so that a huge chunk of the population feels represented. It's never going to happen. I would exclude Tamisha as well, mostly because we know how the show usually treats older pageant queens, but also because on the Meet the Queens, she really looked defeated. We might be wrong about that, so we'll have to see what happens. The other ones were the lovable weirdo, the campy queen, the season-long villain, the professional queen, and then a filler queen or a new prototype. I'm not going over this again or who can be who because it's simply too soon to tell. Let's move on to the confessional chart. Now, what you see are 3 types of confessionals. We have negative, positive, and an intro plus narrator kind of confessional. Now, how do I judge these confessionals? You have to understand, it's a subjective thing. I take into account the circumstance, I take into account the edit that goes around the confessionals, I take into account the kind of sounds that plays under the confessionals, the tone of voice, but ultimately is my judgment. It's not an exact science, but in red, what you see are the ones that I judge to be negative confessionals. The positive one, of course, need no explanation, and the intro plus narrator is the time that the queen spent introducing themselves and the time that they spent being narrators of the season, basically telling you what's happening during the episode. Right out of the bat, what you see is that Kandy had a ton of confessional time. She had 13 confessionals and more than 2 minutes of confessional time. Most of that gray bar that you see was her introduction. She has one of the longest introduction in the season next to Gottmik. Initially, I would have told you that they are drawing our attention to her because she's going to portray it as a villain. Now that I have seen the storyline that they opened up with Rosè, both with Olivia and with Tina, I'm not so convinced. Who else has bad confessionals? Well, this was the shocker for me. Tina Burner, because I think she is funny. I was laughing, genuinely laughing, you know, when she did the showgirl thing. It was so good. But she runs her mouth. You cannot go into this show and talk too much, because if you run your mouth too much, guess what's going to happen to you when, if there's a lack of villains, you are going to be the villain. If they couldn't manage to trigger Rosè, then Tina will be our best candidate for a villain edit. It's disheartening, but she's high profile as well, and she's a good replacement of a villain if they couldn't trigger Rosè. Keep an eye on that. We'll be very active on this thing and keep track of all of it, and I hope people will share it and people will understand it. The other one that surprised me were Denali and Elliot. I was really surprised to see this kind of edit pulled onto them. I don't really understand it. Of course, it's the first episode in a long season, so it's difficult, even though right out of the bat they kind of give you hints of what they want to do. Maybe they're trying to confuse us, to spice up the show a little bit, but I can tell you, all those shady noises of Elliot were no mistakes, so keep an eye on that. And Denali, of course, Denali too, she had a terrible edit, and that being put on the bottom on purpose, it looked to me like they tried to trigger her, and it worked. Now, everything else, there's not much to say about their confessionals. The chart is there, make up your own mind about it, but take a look at Gottmik. She has a minute and 10 seconds of confessionals. Compare it with Tamisha, but she has only 5 confessionals. Tamisha had 10. What does it mean? It means that whenever Gottmik has a confessional, she has a longer confessional, more time to keep our attention on her. She is there and she's talking to you, and they let her talk. So this, for me, it's another hint of a hero edit. You never know what's going to happen until we see all of these queens interact with each other, and by all of them I don't mean just the winner or the losers, I mean all of them together. Until we get the opportunity of seeing how they edit that interaction, we cannot nail down on anybody's edit, but we can put int already, so that next time you see an episode, you already, you start to train your eyes a little bit and keep your attention on someone. So next episode, keep your attention on Denali, Tina, and Elliot, and Rosè. Let's not forget Rosè. With this said, who is going home? The eliminated queen have to choose somebody who's going home. Now, what do I think is going to happen? Well, we have basically 3 possibilities. Number 1, they are really doing it for shock value, and they are really voting one to leave the cast, and she will leave the cast. That's option 1. Number 2, the nominated queen gets to choose who is really going home, because shock value, so that's the other option. Option number 3, the queen that they nominate will join the winners, like they did last season. They asked everybody who is the weaker, and the weaker joined the winners. Of the queens that you see, I would exclude Rosè, because she has 2 storylines open. Tamisha, because, well, she made a good point during the show, and Utica, because if Tina is getting the villain edit, well, we need a quirky queen on the show, and after season 7, the show has learned its lesson on keeping a diverse cast, if you know what I mean. So we're left with Denali, Joey, Elliot, and Kimora. I'd place my bet on any of these queens, because there's really no way to tell which one will be. Now, since we tracked confessionals, we found some queens with 3 different confessionals, and we believe that one comes from a future episode and not just possible refilming. So this is your spoiler alert. Go ahead, take your time, leave a comment, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Kandy has 3 confessionals. The next one is Joy. He's the second who has 3 confessionals. So since he is part of the bottom queens, he's not going anywhere. The other one was Rosè. She's also part of the bottom group, so she's not going anywhere as well. And with that said, thank you so much for joining us, and a very special thanks to our patrons for supporting the channel. Have a nice week, and I will see you on Sunday.